Piano Tech Support here. Today I'll be talking about what I would say are the most difficult pieces by Chopin. Now, a couple of days ago I made a video about the easiest pieces for beginners. This list does not have a specific number. Instead, I'll be just giving you guys what I think are the most difficult pieces by Chopin, the most challenging ones. I don't like the word difficulty, I'll prefer challenge, but these are definitely up there for any experienced pianist. There will be a challenge, and even for seasoned Chopin players, these are the tough pieces. Now keep in mind, this is a subjective list. I've played most of the pieces on this list, but not all of them. So this is of course a subjective list. Anyway, difficulty is subjective. So let's get started. So first we have the ballade number 4, arguably the most difficult ballade out of all of them. And it really shows because we have so many different styles and touches that we need to incorporate in our playing here. So we have, many kinds of different articulation and sound colors that we need to hit, which make it insanely difficult. Of course, we also have technical challenges. For example, if you look here, having the lower voice played by just the thumb or second finger, while the top fingers are doing the melody, and of course the left hand does also something else. This makes it, of course, from the structure and from the texture, very difficult. And there are a lot of technical challenges in this piece, but I would argue probably more musical challenges, making for example, this section here, making it beautiful, is just so hard. And as everyone knows, the coda is famous, Chopin Ballade number 4 coda, as well as I guess also other ballades have famous codas, but this one is definitely a step up because we have this very strange beginning to a coda, and then it sort of streamlines more and more as it progresses. But of course, these notorious thirds, by the way, I have a video on chromatic thirds. If you're struggling with this part, you can check it out. I also have a video out on the ballade number 4, which you can check out. And the coda streamlines more and more and gets easier, but really it's the piece as a whole that incorporates so many different styles, different articulations, dynamics, techniques, that as a whole it makes it really, really tough. Now, since we're speaking about technical challenges, let's go ahead and look at some etudes. So the first one, Opus 10 number 1, is for me one of the hardest etudes there is, having played it for a very, very long time, and then whatever concerts, competitions, it still doesn't change a thing for me that it's one of the hardest etudes there is. Playing this right hand accurately 100% is super difficult, super difficult, and making it not only a technical piece but also something that has musical value is even more difficult. And of course, if you're just getting started, let's say, or you're you're playing piano since not such a long time, then you will feel the effects of stamina, and your hand gets tired and your hand starts to cramp, and all of that happening with this etude, because it is such a great strain on your hand just having to do these arpeggios that are very difficult, especially in the middle section. We have some notorious arpeggios, and this really puts a strain on your hand and on your technique. Again, you can check out my video on this etude that I did, which gives you some tips how to play arpeggios properly and how to not get tired. Next up, we have Opus 10 number 2. Now this is also a strenuous etude, but it's difficult in another way compared to the Opus 10 number 1, because the accuracy is more probable, or let's say it's easier to achieve an accurate play, because the piece is mainly there are no jumps really in the right hand, and it's all close and connected and together. So it's not a problem from an accuracy standpoint. It is more a problem from the outer fingers having enough power and your hand not getting tense and cramping. So this is an extremely difficult piece because most of the time we're not going to be used to playing things with our outer fingers 3 4 5, especially not for such a long time. So this is what makes it very challenging, especially if you haven't done a lot of 3 4 or 4 5 stuff. Then you will definitely feel your hand give in after probably the first page. And even for for many professionals, they don't play this piece in the competition, because if you go to a competition and your hand is cold, then good luck. That's it. It's not gonna work. So for me personally, Opus 10 number 1 works just fine in competition. Even with a cold hand, it works just fine. And Opus 10 number 2 is not something that I would bring to a competition just because I know that I can play it if my hand is warm, but if I'm nervous, my hand is cold, whatever, no chance that it's gonna work flawlessly. And the last thing you want to do is embarrass yourself. So Opus 10 number 2, difficult piece. I have a great deal of respect for it. If you want to know how to play it, you can check my video. I give you some exercises and basically a way that you can learn to play it the proper way. Now we are in the Etudes Opus 25, and from this volume I pick the 6th etude, the double thirds etude, which is, it's a challenge because we're not faced with double notes quite often. We're faced more with runs and arpeggios, but double notes are definitely something we don't come across often. So this is a completely new technical challenge. There are different fingerings to choose from and different techniques. I haven't done a video on it yet, but I will do one where I will show both like fingerings and how to position your hand, etc. But these things can definitely make your life easier. So having the right fingering, the right mindset, and knowing what to look for example, that you can focus on legato on one voice and the other one can be more of a staccato, really changes things a lot, and that's how many people do it. And there are also some ways to split certain runs that I would not recommend, but I'm just saying, even in Chopin competition I've seen people do it. I would not recommend those. I'm just saying there are options and different kinds of fingerings, especially going down, that I've seen. Some are easier for some people, some are more convenient for others. Anyways, very difficult etude, no question about that. This is one that I would say is in the top 2 most difficult ones, or I mean, Opus 10 number 1, Opus 10 number 2, and 25/6 for me are the 3 hardest ones. Anything else comes in a lower category, but these are the 3 that are the most challenging technical pieces by Chopin. Okay, then we have the Concerto number 1, and I was thinking, should I choose Concerto number 1, Concerto number 2? They are both very similar in style, very similar in structure, melody, you name it. They are almost the same concerto, so I will just choose the first one because I like it. And the concerto is really like a collection of many typical Chopin things. You got etudes in there, you've got mazurkas, ballades. It's like a collection of Chopin ideas. Even if he hadn't written the pieces yet, you can tell the ideas were there. So this was the Opus 11. So just as a reference, etudes, are Opus 10 and Opus 25. So you can definitely see a lot of influence of his typical style and it's just like a collection of a lot of Chopin. So if you're gonna have a crack at this, you better know a lot of Chopin pieces, I would say, because that's gonna make your life easy, because you're just gonna see a passage and you're gonna think to yourself, oh, that's like that one nocturne, and this is like the one Chopin etude. So having a great repertoire, especially Chopin repertoire, is going to accelerate how quickly you will learn this piece, because it's just like a collection of a lot of Chopin parts. Okay, the preludes as a whole are probably the longest work by Chopin that you can play, because you've got pieces that vary in difficulty from the most, I would say, the easiest pieces possible, and some of the hardest pieces possible are all in these preludes. So, and what really makes it difficult is playing the whole thing as a whole in one sitting, and making it interesting. So not just playing it through like who cares, but playing it through and giving each piece its own character, own sound color, own quality. This is what makes it an insanely difficult task to play the whole preludes, and to play it in an interesting way, and not just playing it through. And if you want to learn the preludes, you should start with a couple. Just learn a couple of preludes and see how you feel with them. And you can add one or two preludes every month, or every second month, or whatever your pace is. You can also add, like you can say I do um, 10 preludes every week, okay, whatever you want, but do it at your own pace and slowly build up on what you feel comfortable. And that's the good thing about the preludes, is that there are longer pieces, but most of them average like a minute or so. So it is 1 minute or 2 minutes. So it is manageable from a learning standpoint. You can portion it, learning one piece and then the next and the next. So it makes it a little bit easier, but it's definitely, even for mature and experienced pianists, it's a challenge to make it sound good. So preludes is, yeah, that's a big one. Then the Sonata number 3, which many people would argue is the most difficult Chopin work, and I can probably get behind that. I mean, I wouldn't say it's the most difficult one. I would say it's hard to say what's the toughest one, but this is definitely a contender for that. You've got about 35 minutes of intensity, technical challenges, musical challenges. You've got one of the hardest first and fourth movements, I would say, as well as, not only the fast paced movements and sections are the things um, that are challenging, but especially the slow and melodic parts. But of course, the fourth movement is notorious for being difficult. In my experience, I only looked at the first movement, so I played the second sonata, not the third one, which the second sonata is also very hard, so make no mistake. But the third sonata, I looked at the first movement, and I definitely felt like it's more difficult than the second one. So third sonata, just a massive piece, and yeah, have a great deal of respect for it. Then we have something that you might not have expected, but this nocturne right here, the Opus 62 number 1, is for me, first of all, extremely beautiful, but also uh, almost impossible to play it. I have heard a live performance by Pollini playing this, and I wanted to pick it up. And right as I tried it, the next day, I sat down at the piano, and I was like, okay, nope, that's not really gonna work. The sound control that you need to have for this piece, and the phrasing, and oof, there's so much here that I might be able to do it now actually, but when I tried it back then, a couple years ago, no way I was going to make it sound any good. So this nocturne right here, I have really good. I have great respect for it and good memories from hearing Paulini play it live, and yeah, you can try it, of course. It's not so challenging in a technical way, but in a musical way, for me, one of the toughest pieces to solve and to do the phrasing. And maybe I'll give it another shot now that I'm a bit better than a couple years ago. But still, it's wow, it's a challenge. Yeah. If you like this list, please consider liking, subscribing. If you have a question, leave me a comment, and I might do other lists on other composers for beginners and for experts. And yeah, see ya. Thanks for watching.